What's up, everybody? I'm Scott,
And I'm Jason.
and you are listening to Liquid Carnage. My friend, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm living the dream as always. I get to talk with a good buddy. I get good life. People for the most part love me, so I have nothing to complain about that I shouldn't be thankful for my blessings. How about you? How are you doing?
I will fully
Not as
admit
good.
it's spring break is over so I am back to coaching baseball.
Oh, that's right.
And
Yeah.
we're recording after a game today, and I'll be honest, the wind is the spring Arizona winds are blowing, so I'm tired. Uh, I'm completely frustrated because you teach these kids things before spring break. They take 2 weeks off, and it's like they forgot everything. And yeah, it's just one of those you just learn to roll with it, and it's a good life learning experience. It's one of those things where it was a great idea when I was approached about it at the time, and now that I'm in it, uh, I could kill these kids half the time. And our buddy JP is the head coach of this, and I think he kind of is along the same line. But we're too far in it now, so we got to see it through for the next 6 weeks. So it'll be a wild ride.
So the real question is, if you had the DeLorean
Uh-huh.
and could go back with Marty to January 5th, 2022, would you have stopped yourself from agreeing to be the coach of this team?
It would have been too late because I agreed back in October.
Oh, so
Yeah.
yeah, you
So,
would have wasted your flux capacitor
yeah,
totally, man.
exactly. Mr. Fusion would have had to been on his egg again to get back.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly,
But
exactly.
but had I had a time machine, who buddy? I tell you what. Oh, the places I would go, the things I would see.
Yes, I know. Yeah. Noreen and I had a chance. Netflix, it seems like every day has some new show, some new TV program coming on their platform. I mean, they must be making like 1,000 shows every day.
They literally have a new movie release every week the rest of this year, they were saying.
Yeah.
And the
Noreen
blockbuster movies too, not like
Noreen got hooked on this Inventing Anna
oh yeah, so did
docu
Janice.
series
So did
where
Janice.
where the woman was like faking um, faking her life to try to get a better life. The
Yeah.
Tindler Swindler, the Bad Vegan. I mean, all these shows came on like, so they must have like 1,000 different producers going around and said, "Hey, okay, you produce show, you produce show, you produce show. Everyone get the shows coming, and we'll just keep coming with all these
But
shows."
you got to figure though. I mean, some of these are almost, even though they're binge worthy and addictive, because yeah, just Janice has watched the Inventing Anna, and we haven't gotten the other ones yet, and I don't know if we will or not. Had these come out like during the pandemic, I think man, people would be eating this stuff alive because they were just look, think about what they did with the Tiger King.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I definitely recommend Tindler Swindler. It's only 2 hours. It's more of
Uh,
a movie, but I guess it's just always proven to us that women will always try to see the good in men. It doesn't matter. You could be a total jackwagon. Women will say, you know what though, I believe your story. I'll help you. I'll help you because I know there's a good person in there somewhere.
yeah, that's true. But you have to be that bad boy they can fix. That's the only way they do that.
Or they have to believe the story, because like sometimes you got to believe the story, like this Inventing Anna show. These investment bankers wanted to believe the story, and she came across, sounds like from what Noreen said, she came across being able to sell the story, right? We
Yeah,
want to believe in the story, we want to believe.
it's funny. I watched a couple of those episodes with Janice, and this girl, she was a grade A grifter. I mean, she did a great job grifting, and everything was, oh, the wire transfer's coming through. Haven't you received the wire transfer yet? So
Right.
it's basically just kiting. And if you don't know what kiting is, you need to look it up. It's an old banking term, which is basically trying to scam money without actually having the money.
If you want to look at the Florence membership rolls, 2003, 2007, Scott Kern is in there for grifting or whatever you call that, as kiting. And
Kiting.
so Scott only knows it because he read it somewhere. Wink,
Let's
wink.
In 2003, 2004, I was actually working for a bank. And that's where I got my started in banking, in the banking industry. And that's actually where I learned about kiting because I had to help look for it. Little known
Well,
fact.
and I think the fascinating thing about the stories that I've watched is when the people get to the point where they've exhausted every single purse string nuance in banking,
Hmm.
and basically they don't know what to do, right? They
Yeah.
don't know where the next dollar is coming from, and so they have to try to find the next dollar somehow. And the really good ones, they find a way, man. They
Oh, they
find
always
a
find a way.
way. You know?
If you're a con man, you always find a way because you're
Yeah,
always on your game.
I
And
know.
there's a lot of movies out there that show the different ways to con. And Ocean's 11, the first one was a great movie because that was a series of different cons. There's an old Ed Burns movie called Confidence. Same thing. You know,
I think the one thing I will say about these movies about these new documentary series or whatever that I'm watching and the old ones is the youth of these con people. Like they're all in their 20s. Like at least with Ocean's 11, these people had learned the grift for a long time. I don't know about Confidence, but the characters were older in Ocean's 11. So even though it was a made up story, you could kind of believe, okay, George Clooney can pull this off because he's older. All the main players were older. These new swindlers, I mean, they're young. They're like in their 20s
yeah, and you don't think,
learning this stuff,
yeah,
and
but look at
they know how to work it.
no, man, look at the information at their fingertips.
Yeah.
Look at what they have on the internet, what they can read about, what they can find. I mean, there's so much that they have access to that we didn't have when we were their age.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so
And
you got to figure it should be that surprising at all. In fact, I would venture to say that you're going to see more and more stories like the Tinder swindler or whatever else, because people, as we've been proven over the last couple of years, will literally believe anything on the internet.
and how much of their social media presence plays a part in that.
Oh,
Like
that's a fair
when you
that's
see someone like the Tinder swindler,
Tinder
he kind of
swindler.
Tinder swindler, yeah, he kind of made himself out like a rich person,
Mm-hmm.
so people believed it because all you have to do is stand in front of a Lamborghini or take a picture in Gucci or something, and people just assume that you're rich, right? They assume that you're wealthy, or take a picture of your hand filled with diamonds, and people think, "Oh, look, he's rich," because they're believing whatever they're seeing on this
Yeah,
social media page.
yeah. I mean, that's what the internet's for. That's to basically lie to people. That's what social media is, to portray a life that you want people to think is better than what it actually is.
Or to make them think, "Hey, you can be a part of this life if you want."
Yeah.
And they think, "Oh, I want to be a part of this life. I like jet setting and I like going to fancy places and buying expensive. I love that. I want that. I want that." Okay, and by the way, hey, I forgot my wallet. Can you buy this $2,500 dinner for me? Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll pay you back once I see you.
Yeah, that's how you get Edgeworth.
Mm.
Yeah, but you're right.
Yeah,
That's just
that's
part.
how. Yeah, I mean, oh, I'm chump change. I am chump change, Scott, compared to some of these people. Like for getting your wallet for $25,000. I mean, my $100 is nothing now.
Yeah, I mean, but you have to understand though, Jason. Like with a lot of these kids these days, the access they have and to information, the stories that they've been able to find and read and come up with, they're learning from each other. I mean, they're kids are smarter these days than we probably give them credit for. I mean, they don't want to work, but they want to work. If that makes sense.
I think also that
Everybody wants to
it's
be an influencer.
it seems to me that the youth of today have a really good ability to sell a life that they may not necessarily be living.
Yeah, it's called
Uh,
influencing.
or yeah, like their visualization of their life of what it is and the reality of what it is. They do a really good job blurring that division.
Yes, it's
And
called influencing.
well, no, but influencing is more than that, because influencing isn't that where you say, "Hey, I really like this tape measure," and then everyone says, "Oh, well, they like that tape measure, so now I'm going to like that tape measure." That's a little different than someone who just sells a life. Like, for
You mean like
example,
the people that go to those fancy hotels and the hotels fly them out there and they get paid to stay there and take pictures because they've got so many followers,
right? Yeah, so they're like
whether the place is
selling.
great or not. Yeah,
Yeah, like they sell. Well, isn't that what one of the young Jenner girls did? Is like she's an influencer because as soon as she says, "Ooh, I like this tea from Starbucks," then everybody buys the tea from Starbucks. I'm sure the Kardashians are probably the same, kind of thing.
it's all
Um,
sales. It's all grifting. It's
yeah,
all a long con of I like this better than that. So you have to, you know, they're all basically the Tinder swindlers. they just were able to get away with it. I guess in a legal sense more than this other guy was.
Yeah, and I mean, I think though that then couple that with the cancel culture, which is the exact opposite. You do something wrong and you lose followers, you lose people that follow you, you become non-existent, and that's like
Well,
the big worst thing that can happen to a young kid
you do
who's
something
in
wrong or
social
you do
media.
something perceived wrong. There's a difference, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Like I remember the one kid who he was an influencer and doing all these great things, and then he decided to go to some party with COVID. He had COVID and went to a party anyways, and then he lied on social media saying that someone told him to go. He didn't want to go, but someone told him to go, and I guess he lost like half of his followers, and then he was all depressed and stuff.
That is the dumbest story I've ever heard.
I'm just saying that's the reality of the world we live in. If I could go back in time and change it, maybe I would. If
Mhm.
I lost one of my two followers, wouldn't devastate me too much,
I mean,
unless it was Noreen. If it was Noreen, then I'd be in trouble.
you would be in trouble. You
Yeah,
would definitely be in trouble on that one. you know, I just
we.
I
It
don't know,
was
man.
just.
I'm at a very
I
weird age. I was discussing this today with some coworkers. We're in a very weird age where I'm old enough to know what that stuff is and not want to do it, but also young enough that if I really wanted to apply some of that influencing stuff, I'm sure in some fields I could. But I just don't. I don't. I guess I don't fully understand the ins and the outs, nor do I want to. A younger me probably would have taken advantage of it. If I had a time machine for that, I would have.
well, and I think that not. I don't know even how we got on this conversation, but uh, I get to the feeling like I'm okay with the young kids wanting to pursue that. What I get sad about is that while the very select few become so powerful, the rest of that generation become, with all due respect, and this is only my opinion, simple-minded followers. They
What you're
just
saying is
follow
we are
with
turning everything into a culture of mean girls where there's only certain Regina Georges and everybody else is just a follower.
and part of me is thinks, okay, if the younger generation is okay with developing their definition of who they are based on an influencer or the trend that's going, who am I to judge that? I don't live that way. If their life works better for them that way, it does. What I find is that at some point, I get the feeling that as they get older, they will lose some of the importance because they'll recognize once they start having kids or once they lose a grandparent, a parent, that it starts to lose some of its value.
I think at that point they evolve. They'll be on to the next thing. Either they'll go back and either they'll go into a real working job or they'll find a way to, convert and it into
Now,
something else.
on the other side, we got to spend some time with my 91-year-old father-in-law, and realized that he was taking a bus from Phoenix back to Tucson to drop him off, but there was a concern that he might miss his connecting ride from the place where they drop off to his home. And we were thinking, well, he can just take an Uber. And then I had to stop and say, no, he doesn't have a smartphone. So no, there's no Uber. Now I realized that I could put him on my Uber account and I could order him one. So we set that up. But I realized now he's on the other end of the spectrum. He doesn't text. He doesn't have a smartphone. He doesn't have any of the technologies that we do, and he seems to get along just fine. So it's all a big spectrum of love, man.
Well, yeah, but that's also a generation that didn't have that. So if you didn't have it growing up, you don't need it. It's not a big deal. Kids today
Hey,
don't know what to do without half that stuff they have.
well, and maybe, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. They'll learn. They'll learn. They'll get it.
Yeah, they can learn to
Hey,
do without. Yeah.
did you and have you guys watched? Speaking of Netflix, have you guys watched the Adam Project yet?
No, not yet. We haven't had time to sit down and watch it.
Oh well, get some time, man.
I'm trying.
Stop taking care of kids and making dinners and stuff, and teaching kids how to play baseball, and sit down and do nothing and veg out like the rest of us do.
This weekend,
Wow,
I'll try.
that was a lecture.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's a story about time travel, basically. And it, I don't know why. Anytime I watch any of these time travel movies, where it's like this movie or Back to the Future or In Time, not In Time. What's the one we always argue is like a poor
Avatar.
Avatar? No, not Avatar. That's Dancing with Wolves. But the one, oh, Groundhog Day, and the movie where the guy is um, on the train Jake Gyllenhaal. I can't remember what that movie is, but anyway, it's a time travel movie as well.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah.
laughed about that a few times in a drunken stupor, but that's another podcast, right?
Yeah.
But time travel is so mind-boggling to me. Have you ever like had issues with time travel or time travel movies?
No, I've always enjoyed them.
Okay.
I just have to laugh at that because our friend Ralph, who's passed, would literally go watch any movie in the world, love it or hate it, unless it was a time travel movie. The minute there's a time travel movie, he was out. Like the Avengers Endgame,
Uh-huh.
he was all through the whole Infinity Gauntlet saga until the very last movie. The minute they started hopping through time, he checked out. And it was the funniest thing in the world to me. He hated Back to the Future. He hated anything that had to do with time travel.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, and it was like, and
Did
JP
he
and I would always try to
did he
find
ever
the time
tell you
travel.
why? Did he ever tell you why?
It wasn't believable to him.
Okay, it wasn't believable.
It,
Maybe that
but
may,
some of the stuff we watched was, and it was completely insanely stupid.
like
But
Fast
time
and
travel is
Furious
where he
going
drew
up
the
into
line.
space, I totally believe that could happen. But time travel, I totally don't. Right? Yeah, I
Yeah,
get it. I get it.
yeah, yeah. No, I
I think the struggle that I have with it is that you know they always make it out in the movie that not much changes when someone goes back into time and inserts themselves with things of the future. And I've always felt like the minute that you step into that alternate reality, it's going to change. It's going to change, right?
yeah.
And I mean, especially if you see yourself. I mean, especially if you go back and talk to yourself, or you go back and talk to your loved ones. You know?
So it's okay. So this is an interesting topic on many levels for me, and I want to point out to our EP Tom. This is actually Jason's topic, not mine this week. Um, but I have fallen down enough conspiracy theory holes about time travel to where um, I am on the lines of thinking that I am not totally convinced that it's false. I mean, there are certain pictures out there like this is a little weird to have that person in these pictures, and if you do the research on it, you'll find them. Um, I do believe that if it is real and what they say is true, you are instructed not to talk to anybody, not to interact with anybody. You're just to observe, stay out of the way, and you get to come back.
Okay. Okay. And I would assume then that if you believe in time travel, it's possible because time travel doesn't have to be 50 years from now, 100 years. It could be 10,000 years from now, right?
Exactly. And
Someone could say, I want to go back 10,000 years and I want to see 2022.
there is an urban legend that the Vatican has a machine in its vaults, the catacombs that they use. They're able to look back at um, like Christ's resurrection and but he was hung on the cross and whatnot. Like they can go back and see uh, those moments.
But they can't get involved with those
Like
moments.
no, that one is just literally it's like a viewer. It's like you're watching a movie, but they can
Oh, I see.
see.
Okay. So you can't go back, you can only see it.
You can only see it. That's what they say the
Okay.
Vatican has. But if you fall down some of those conspiracy theories, the U.S. government does. A lot of the governments have the ability with through Stargates or whatever else to time travel. But that being said, you're right. The butterfly effect, I think, happens if you touch something, talk to the wrong person, you could completely change the realities of that plane.
Yeah. I mean, and what I think about is, we obviously think of some of the big events, right? The like
Mhm.
if someone could have said, "Hey, you know what? Maybe Challenger shouldn't take off today."
Yeah,
Right? You think of some of those kind of events. But I was
stop
thinking in
JFK from going to Denver or Dallas. Yeah,
Dallas, yeah. Or hey, you know what? Maybe take a different route.
yeah.
So many things, right? Now, the thing I think about the little things.
Hmm.
For example, um, coming in contact with a younger version of your father.
Yeah,
I mean, even if you didn't see anything, your father might have looked at you when you were 2 and then saw you come back when you were 40 or 41 and said, "Hmm, I know you." Doesn't that instance of "I know you" throw the rest of his life off? Because now for the rest of his life, he knows, "Oh my gosh, time travel is real."
I don't know if he knows it's real. I think at that point it just makes him think like I could have sworn I knew him somewhat from some point, or I saw him somewhere before, because it doesn't
Yeah,
affect any choices he's making. I mean,
we don't
it
know.
basically affects one nugget of knowledge that he'll kick around for the rest of his life, saying that guy looked familiar. Like I saw him before, then I saw him years later.
Yeah,
But I don't think it's going to affect his daily life decisions.
yeah. I Yeah, I don't know. I think the smallest little change. We talked about when Noreen's mother passed away. Um, I didn't know this about her mother, but Noreen was telling me that when she was like 18 years old, she had had a chance to go into the civil service. She had passed the civil service test, and
Mm-hmm.
they actually wanted to get her on the civil service and send her to Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And she decided not to because she was, falling for Noreen's dad, and they decided to have a family. But even something as simple as what if she had gone to the civil service and went to Michigan or went to Hawaii instead of becoming a mother?
Yeah, I mean that's
You know what
fair.
I mean? Like everything that my whole entire life as I know it is no longer there. So even something as simple as that decision
Yeah,
could
I
have
mean,
changed, the whole scheme of things.
yeah, no, I agree completely. It's it's like I said, it's the butterfly effect, and for those that don't know, it's more than just an Ashton Kutcher movie from the early 2000s. It's the idea that the flapping of a butterfly's wings could change the future of anything, because of what it could do. Is basically what it comes down to. Like it could move a dandelion in a different direction that's blowing in the air. That could get an elephant to sneeze. That could get someone sick with something like a coronavirus that would normally be to a human, that make it transports. Then there's a whole plague. It's the little things like that that could happen, just from the simple flap of a butterfly wing.
And I guess it's hard to determine what event is big enough to have a life altering change versus what decision doesn't impact anything.
Yeah.
But I guess all of them impact. Like if we go out to dinner tonight, instead of going to one restaurant, we go to another. I wouldn't think that would change the course of our lives. However, maybe it would.
Well, that comes down to the, I guess if you believe in fate and you're exactly where you're supposed to be in this life, like a predetermined plan for your life, as it were. you know a lot of people believe that you're doing the things you're supposed to be doing. You are going to the places you're supposed to be going because it's part of God's plan. It's part of the plan.
Well, and one thing that I have a trouble. One of the things I've always had a trouble with that argument, which I've heard a lot too, is I can't imagine it's God's plan for people to get hooked on drugs and live in poverty. I can't imagine that's part of his plan.
Well, you can't
Uh,
imagine that, but some people think that's part of God testing them to get to recover and lead a little more righteous life.
yeah, but if part of God's plan is to put us through that kind of misery,
Hmm.
that seems like a pretty arbitrary and punitive plan.
Well, yeah, in your eyes, but in the person who perseveres on the side and has faith, restored faith, and stories to tell, and stories to pass on to help others. I mean, who's to argue that that's not what they're meant to do?
Yeah, so maybe some people are meant to go to the depths of hell and get hooked on drugs and all kinds of bad stuff so they can get closer to God.
Yeah, I mean that's really
Long
what
way
it is.
around. Yeah, I get
I
you.
mean it's not for us to say. I mean it's all interpretive. I mean, and at the end of the day, I guess that's really what this show is all about. Is we're just discussing life and topics from our interpretations, but at the end of the day, it's just two opinions. There's 7 billion opinions out there, and not any opinion is exactly the same.
Right. Yeah. And if I could go back and change some things, it's easy for me to say no, I wouldn't change that because I wouldn't be where I am today. Um, you
You
know,
wouldn't change it. You wouldn't go back and change anything.
I think I would say that because it would take me away from today. On the other side, sometimes I wonder if I had changed this, would have had a fuller life, even as sad as that is to say that I wouldn't be with Noreen, right?
What if you had the opportunity, hypothetically speaking, to go back to a point in time in your life at that age, knowing what you know now, but you could do things differently? Say if you can go back to 25 years old,
Yeah.
25 years.
Yeah, I get the sneaking suspicion that changing. I'm trying to think. 25 years ago, changing anything in that moment would probably not have led me to Nuri. And while I wouldn't say that my life wouldn't have been different or better, it might have been worse, might have been better. That's another thing too. You think you're changing something for a positive, and then that actually makes it worse.
There's no
So
guarantees. Yeah.
there's no guarantees on that either. So I guess going forward is I'd rather endure the pain that I endured throughout my life so far to be able to be at this point than to take the chance of I could fix this one thing 25 years ago, and I know for a fact my life would be better.
And
Um,
I'm not saying fix something from 25 years ago. I'm saying take a different path.
well, I know, but that's assuming that you're changing the path of what you did do, which
Yeah.
obviously didn't work out well, and you're fixing it to do something different. Other things play into mind too is that do if you go back in time to change something, obviously who you are that's coming back can't stay either, right? The version of you that comes back can't stay either.
Well, it almost turns into like the time variant lines. If you watch the Disney Plus series Loki, for the Marvel series, it's
Uh-huh.
a thing show because that's what it is. It's he gets picked up by the time variant police essentially, and he has to jump through different realities in different universes to find a killer. So he exists in all these different realities, just in different capacities.
Okay, so like in Back to the Future,
Mm-hmm.
the changes that were made did not alter the ending point. Like Marty McFly
He
was still there,
he
everyone was
altered
still there.
he altered a different. Basically, what happened is the minute that Biff stole that sports almanac,
Yeah,
the timeline split. So
right. In the first Back to the Future, everything on the timeline continued
yeah,
as normal. Like the three
yeah,
kids were
yeah,
still there
but
and all that stuff.
what I'm saying though is based on the logic out there today is the minute that Biff stole that almanac, it branched. The reality timeline that they're in branched. So they
He didn't
started
steal the
taking.
almanac till number two, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I know. I'm talking about number one. I didn't mention number two.
Oh, I know, but what I'm talking about it because number two is where it changed everything, and to go back and do it and fix it.
No, number one. He went back and fixed it. Remember?
Yeah, he also did number two and number
I
three.
okay, but did I mention number two? You mentioned number two, so you changed
My
my.
point, my point
Wow, this
being,
is and there we go. If I could go back in time 3 seconds, I would slap you.
my point being is though, the minute you change the future, the ultimate future, because that's what part two was about. Was they went back to 1985 as a completely different future than what the reality he was in was. Correct?
No, he went back because the young Marty McFly was making bad decisions, and then
Yes,
it just happened to also be he had to go
but
back in number. Yeah,
he went back in part two to go fix that, but Biff stole the almanac because he made a bad choice.
right.
So when he went back to 1985, they clearly saw what the problem was.
Yeah,
The reality that was created. Correct.
right, right.
So he had to go back to 1955 to prevent that from happening.
Fix
Are
that.
you with
Right.
me?
I'm with you.
The minute Biff stole that almanac, the timeline branched out, and that created that new reality. So basically, by going back and making sure that reality didn't happen by burning the almanac, trimmed that reality from happening and restored the natural timeline he was on.
Yeah.
So it's to go with saying that if it were possible in all reality, the minute you go back in time and you change that decision, the reality you're on right now is in theory still there, just on a different universe, and you're just branching off onto a new reality.
Yeah, which then the argument, at least in my mind, is it was nice and clean, and just talking about the first Back to the Future, the timeline kept all the same characters, the same house, everything. There was only a difference in the outcomes of their success, right? That was the only change.
Yeah.
In my opinion, you change one thing like that, what if Biff or what if McFly doesn't marry his mom? What if they decide, you know what? Screw having kids. Let's go have fun, right? So that's why I'm saying, does the future coming back also alter that person who's coming back as well?
It's entirely possible. I mean, this is a whole theory that we don't really know a lot about. I mean,
Yeah, thank goodness.
you can
And
only
I haven't seen
hypothesize.
anyone yet. So if you ever see someone that looks out of place, I'm sorry, I can't say that. We see that all the time. If you ever see someone that looks like they're from the future and they're scoping you, you got to let me know, man, because I've never seen anything like that. So
I would
I'm
suggest.
not familiar with that, but you're in the know about this stuff, man. If you see something, you got to let me know.
Well, as we wrap up the show today, I would urge you to go up and just do like watch some YouTube videos, watch and I'll send you some so you can kind of have an idea what I'm talking about. Just an interesting theory. It's kind of fun, but there's some stuff out there that make you go, huh, okay, So it's just food for thought to think about throughout the week as we go. But if you have an interesting idea or theory about time travel and you want to share it with us, hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, all at Liquid Carnage. Or if you have any summer cooking grilling tips for our EP Tom, hit him up on Instagram and Twitter at liquid_EP.
Yeah. Frankly, if change in the future would take us away from doing our podcast for coming on 6 years,
Wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't do it.
Would not do it.
Would not do it. So let's just make sure that we put that on the record that I would go through every pain over the last 49 years just to be able to say that I had the 5.5 going on, starting our 6th year with the podcast.
Yes, but we're also going on 15 years of friendship, so that goes.
That's true. That's true.
If not longer. I've got to do the math again.
I know.
I think it's
I
probably
know.
17.
Just think, man, 15 years ago, if you said, you know what, I'm not going to go as Maverick. I think I'm going to go as the Mad Hatter.
Yeah, right.
Nothing would have happened. We would never have ever met, dude.
Yeah.
We still would have drank a little.
We would have
bit. I
met.
mean,
We would have got drunk together. We just would have not liked each other.
Exactly. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, Jason, take us home.
Hey, thanks everyone for listening. We really appreciate you guys. That was Scott. I'm Jason. And as always, if you never know quite what to say, just have yourself some liquid carnage.